What happens when a beloved Hollywood icon finally snaps on live television? Tonight, we revisit one of the most jaw-dropping moments in late-night talk show history, a night when Brooke Shields, long admired for her grace and composure, walked straight into an interview that spiraled into chaos. What began as a routine chat quickly unraveled into a tense standoff, ending with Brooke storming off the set and leaving both the host and the audience in stunned silence. This wasn't just another celebrity meltdown. This was a mass in what happens when a line is crossed and dignity is put on trial in real time. The night began like any other. Studio lights blazed overhead as Andy Cohen took his familiar spot behind the curved desk, flashing that trademark grin. The cameras rolled, the crowd buzzed with anticipation, and the energy in the room was alive. Brooke Shields entered with her signature poise, smiling and waving as the audience erupted in applause. Decades in the spotlight had taught her how to own a stage, from the controversy of her early career to her successful turn in television and theater, and tonight was supposed to be no different. She sat down, elegant and composed. As Andy leaned forward with the mischievous spark his fans knew all too well. "Brooke, it's so great to have you here," Andy began warmly, though there was already a glint of provocation in his eyes. "You look fantastic, but I have to ask, because everyone's been wondering, there have been some rumors swirling around about your personal life lately." Her smile held steady, but her posture shifted. A faint stiffness crept in, the kind only visible to a trained. "I will, Andy. You know how rumors work in this business. Most of them are fiction. But sure, some of them have a grain of truth," she replied with controlled politeness. Andy leaned in, hungry. "There's been talk about tension in your marriage. Some pretty detailed stories that seem to elaborate to dismiss as tabloid fluff." The atmosphere shifted instantly. The laughter and warmth drained from the room. Brooke's smile faltered just for a heartbeat before she caught it. "Andy, I came here tonight to talk about my new project, not my private life," she said, her tone steady but edged. Andy chuckled lightly, though the sound carried something sharper than amusement. "Come on, Brooke, you know that's not how this works. Your fans want the real you, not the sanitized press version. Reports say you and your husband had a very public spat at that gala last month. Harsh words, witnesses, the whole deal." Brooke's hands tightened in her lap, knuckles whitening as she forced her voice to remain calm. "Whoever your sources are, they're mistaken. My husband and I are fine, and I don't appreciate having to defend my marriage on national television. But you're not defending it, are you?" Andy pressed, sensing weakness. "Look, everyone has rough patches, it's relatable. Why not admit that?" Her composure cracked just slightly, her voice rising for the first time. "Andy, my marriage is not a storyline for your ratings. It's my family. My children could be watching this right now." Instead of backing off, Andy pushed harder, his instincts as a provocateur taking control. "But Brooke, you've made a career out of sharing your life with the public. Memoirs, interviews, documentaries. You've never shied away from personal struggles before. Why start now?" Brooke's mask slipped further. "Because this is different," she shot back. "There's a difference between telling my own story on my terms and having rumors shoved down my throat. What you're doing is crossing that line." Andy smirked, trying to pivot. "All right, then let's change gears. There have also been reports about your behavior on set lately. Some crew members say you've been difficult to work with." The word landed like a stone in the room. Brooke froze. Silence filled the studio, stretching on as the cameras caught every flicker of emotion flashing across her face. When she finally spoke, her voice was dangerously quiet, every syllable laced with venom. "Difficult," she repeated slowly, almost tasting the word. "Andy, I've been in this industry for over 40 years. I've worked with the toughest directors and the most demanding co-stars, and never not once has anyone who mattered called me difficult. So I'd love to know which crew members you're referring to, because I'd like to meet them myself." Andy shifted, his confidence faltering, but his pride kept him pressing forward. "Look, I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying multiple sources have claimed you've been more demanding. Maybe it's stress, maybe personal issues bleeding into your work." Brooke cut him off, her voice sharper now, her restraint fraying. "Sources, you keep hiding behind sources. Are we talking about legitimate professionals, or some assistant who overheard gossip at craft services and decided to sell it as fact? Because there's a big difference, Andy, and as someone who pretends to be a journalist, you should know that." The air in the studio turned heavy, suffocating. The audience sat in stunned silence, glued to the escalating tension. Andy tried to steady himself, but his usual playful arrogance looked more fragile by the second. "Brooke, I understand you're feeling defensive," he said carefully, "but getting hostile with me won't change the conversation." We're talking," Andy insisted, his voice pressing like a vice. "When multiple people repeat the same thing, it's worth addressing. There were reports from the set of your last film that you made unreasonable demands, that you held up production while taking personal phone calls." Brooke's eyes ignited with fury, the polished veneer she'd worn for decades now stripped raw, unreasonable demands. Personal phone calls, her voice cut through the silence like glass. Do you want to know what those calls were about? Andy, they were about my daughter having a panic attack at school and needing her mother. They were about my elderly mother falling, breaking her hip, and me trying to coordinate her care from 3,000 miles away. But sure, let's call that being difficult. Let's call prioritizing my family over a film schedule unreasonable. The weight of her words hit the studio like a thunderclap. Even Andy faltered, blinking as though he had just realized he had stepped into something far more serious than gossip. But instead of retreating, his pride shoved him forward. Look, I get that family is important, he said, forcing a smirk that no longer seemed confident. But when you're being paid millions to do a job, don't you think there's a level of professionalism expected? Everyone has family issues. Not everyone handles them the way you did. The words detonated. Brooke stared at him, silent for a long, dangerous moment as the audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. When she finally spoke, her tone was camerally calm. How I handled them, she repeated, her voice a quiet blade. Let me tell you how I handled them. Andy, I worked 16-hour days while juggling 2 family emergencies. I never missed a single call time. I never flubbed a line. I never let my personal life compromise my work, not once. The only thing I did was ask for 5 minutes to take a phone call that mattered. If that makes me difficult, then maybe this industry needs to take a hard look at itself. Andy swallowed hard, clearly realizing the danger of where this was heading, but unable to stop himself. I'm just saying, other actors manage to keep their personal lives separate. Other actors don't disrupt production. That broke her restraint. Other actors, Brooke's voice rose, her composure unraveling. You mean the ones who hand their children off to strangers and don't look back? The ones so disconnected they wouldn't even know if their family was in crisis? Is that the standard you think I should aspire to, Andy? Is that the kind of mother, the kind of daughter, you're telling me to be? The studio grew restless. Laughter and cheers were gone. This was no longer entertainment, it was a reckoning. Andy, sensing the audience slipping away, tried to backpedal. Brooke, you're twisting my words. I never said you should neglect your family. I'm just trying to understand the gap between your professional image and these recent reports. Her laugh was sharp and humorless. My professional image, she echoed. Andy, my professional image is built on 4 decades of showing up, doing the work, and treating every single person on set with respect. It's built on never missing a performance, never being late, never being the diva people like to imagine. But apparently, none of that matters. One rumor, one whispered story, and suddenly, I'm unprofessional. Andy pressed again, desperation creeping into his tone, but there are also reports about tension with your co-stars. Heated exchanges. Arguments that made people uncomfortable. Brooke's face went cold, her eyes burning holes through him. Heated exchanges. Be specific, because if you're going to sit here on national television and assassinate my character, then at least have the decency to say what I'm being accused of. Andy hesitated, fumbling disagreements about script changes. Intense discussions about character motivations, discussions. Brooke cut in, her voice sharp as steel. You mean an actor engaging with the material? Challenging weak writing? Fighting for authenticity? That's not tension, Andy. That's doing my job. That's called caring about the work. If you think passion equals hostility, then you've never spent a single day on a set. Andy's carefully constructed persona was unraveling. His smile twitched, his words stumbled. Maybe difficult was the wrong word. Maybe it's just that you've become more intense, different than you used to be. Brooke's eyes narrowed. More intense, she repeated, every word dripping with disdain. Maybe I am. Maybe after 40 years of being poked, prodded, and second-guessed, I am more intense. Maybe after a lifetime of proving myself over and over again, I don't have patience for petty gossip disguised as journalism. Maybe after being asked to choose between my family and my career, I've decided I won't apologize for caring about both. If that makes me intense, then so be it. The tension in the studio was unbearable now. The silence deafening. Andy's confidence was gone, replaced by a flushed face and a twitch of regret. But Brooke wasn't finished. You want to know what's really difficult, Andy? She said, her voice shaking now. Not from weakness, but from sheer, unrestrained anger. Difficult is sitting here while you regurgitate gossip as fact. Difficult is having my reputation questioned by someone who's never carried the weight of a film, never balanced a career and a family, never been under this kind of scrutiny. And now, you want to spin my life into a circus for ratings. Andy opened his mouth, but she cut him off with finality. Let me make this clear, she said, leaning forward, her voice echoing with authority. You didn't invite me here tonight to talk about my work. You didn't invite me here to celebrate my craft. You brought me here to ambush me with half-truths and rumors, to strip me down for entertainment. Well, congratulations, Andy. You've succeeded, but this is where it ends. Brooke pushed back her chair, the screech of wood against the floor slicing through the tense silence. She rose, straightened her shoulders, and without another glance at him, walked off the stage. The audience, SAT, frozen. The cameras kept rolling, and Andy Cohen, usually the master of chaos, was left staring at an empty chair. His smirk wiped clean, the silence louder than anything he could have scripted. "It sounds like you didn't invite me here to talk about my work or my upcoming projects," Brooke said, her voice cutting through the air like glass. "You brought me here to ambush me with gossip and recycled rumors, all designed to tear me down." "Am I?" Andy shot back, his composure cracking, "because from where I'm sitting, it sounds exactly like that's what you believe." His face flushed, the controls slipping from his grasp. "Brooke, that's not fair. I'm doing my job. My audience expects me to ask tough questions, to push past the PR spin. If you can't handle that, maybe interviews aren't for you." The words landed like a slap. The studio went dead silent. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Brooke's lips parted in disbelief before she whispered, "If I can't handle that." Her voice rose, steadying with fire. "Andy, I've been handling tough questions since before you knew which end of a camera was up. I've sat through reporters asking me about my mother's alcoholism when I was barely out of my teens. I've answered for choices I made as a child. I've opened up about postpartum depression, broken relationships, career failures, all because I believed in being honest with the public." Her voice grew in power. "But what you're doing isn't journalism. This is gossip dressed up as truth. There's a difference between asking hard questions and character assassination." Sweat glistened on Andy's forehead. "Look, Brooke, I'm sorry if you feel attacked, but these stories are out there. People are talking. My job is to address them. Your job," she cut him off with a bitter laugh, "your job is to entertain at my expense. To take decades of work, of reputation, of sacrifice and reduce it to anonymous whispers and clickbait headlines. That's what you call journalism." Andy tried to steady his tone, but it came out patronizing. "Brooke, you're being overly dramatic. These are real concerns raised within the industry." The phrase hit her like a physical blow. She shot to her feet, her chair rolling back with a jolt that made the audience gasp. "Overly dramatic? Do you have any idea what it's like to be a woman in this industry? To prove yourself every single day twice as prepared, twice as professional, twice as perfect just to be taken seriously. And even then, one nameless source can brand you difficult and undo everything." "Brooke, sit down, please. You're blowing this out of proportion. I'm making this bigger," she thundered, pacing before his desk like a caged storm. "You're the one spreading gossip about my personal life. You're the one questioning my professionalism, based on rumors, and now you tell me I should calm down. Of course, calm down. Just another phrase men use to silence women when we refuse to be pushed around." She stopped inches from his desk, towering over him. "You know what, Andy? I won't calm down. I won't sit pretty and play along with this circus so you can get your ratings spike. For 40 years, I've smiled through sexist jokes, endured condescending interviews, and tolerated invasive questions, all to promote my work. But I will not sit here and let you brand me as difficult for setting boundaries. I will not let you question my character for caring about my family, and I will not pretend this ambush is acceptable." Andy swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "Brooke, you know this comes with the territory. It's part of the business." Her eyes blazed. She leaned across his desk, locking him in her gaze. "No, Andy, part of the business is showing up prepared. It's respecting the craft, respecting the people, promoting projects with honesty. What's not part of the business is defending yourself against anonymous slander. What's not part of the business is having your private life stripped bare for ratings under the disguise of journalism." Andy stammered. "Brooke, I think you're mischaracterizing," she snapped, the word exploding like a gunshot. "Not mischaracterizing anything," Brooke snapped, her voice sharp and unwavering. "I'm calling it exactly what it is. A hit job. You used your platform to tear down someone who's spent 40 years being nothing but professional, and you did it because you thought it would get you attention. Ratings, headlines, well, congratulations. Andy, you got what you wanted." The audience sat in frozen silence, some shifting uncomfortably, as if they were intruding on something private and brutal. "You'll get your buzz," she continued, her sarcasm cutting like a blade. "People will be talking. They'll talk about how you ambushed a respected actress with tabloid trash, how you tried to shame a working mother for caring about her family, how you turned your show into a platform for character assassination. But you know what else they'll talk about? They'll talk about how I didn't just sit there and take it. They'll talk about how I stood up, how I refused to be bullied, how I called your behavior for exactly what it is, unprofessional." And Andy was sweating now, his trademark polish shattered. "Brooke, look, maybe we both got a little heated. Why don't we take a breath, and I'll ask you about your Broadway show." She stared at him, deadly calm. "You think we both got heated? I got heated because you attacked my character. You got heated because I wouldn't roll over. That's the difference." With deliberate precision, she unclipped her microphone. "And as for my Broadway show, here's a newsflash. Real artists don't want to work with people who can't tell the difference between journalism and gossip. We don't want to play along with ambushes disguised as interviews. Andy leaned forward, panic creeping into his tone. Brooke, please, don't do this. Let's just finish the interview. She gave him a look that bordered on pity. The interview ended the moment you decided to attack my family and my professionalism. Based on rumors, everything since then has just been you, digging yourself deeper. Handing her mic to a stunned technician, she added, the sad part is, Andy, I actually had great stories to share tonight. Funny moments from set. Touching anecdotes about my cast. Insights into the creative process. Instead, your audience got to watch you try to destroy someone's reputation for sport. Andy's voice cracked with desperation. I'm sorry if you feel like I crossed a line. Let's just sit down. Have a real conversation. She stopped, purse in hand, and turned back toward him. If I feel like you crossed a line, Andy, you didn't just cross it, you obliterated it. I came here in good faith to promote my work, and you turned it into an inquisition. And now the only reason you're apologizing is because you realize this is going badly for you. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. The cameras kept rolling, immortalizing every second. Brooke's voice grew stronger. Carrying the weight of her decades in the industry, I've endured scandals, setbacks, sexism, and survived it all with my integrity intact. What you tried to do here tonight was reduce my career, my craft, my family, to cheap gossip. And that, more than anything, tells me this conversation is over. She turned and walked toward the exit. The studio was silent, but for the steady click of her heels. Andy's voice cracked as he called after her. Brooke, wait, please don't leave like this. We can fix this. Without turning around, she answered clearly enough for everyone to hear. We already talked it through. The problem is, you weren't listening. You were just waiting for your next ambush. And with that, she disappeared off set, leaving behind a stunned audience and a speechless host. The cameras lingered on Andy's shaken face as he forced a weak smile. Well, that was certainly something, he muttered, his smooth delivery gone. We'll be right back after this break.